The sun sank slowly behind the hills, casting a warm golden hue over the expansive grounds of the Ashbourne estate. The grand mansion perched atop a gentle slope offered a commanding view of the glittering city below, its marble facade glowing in the soft evening light. Towering columns framed the entrance, while vibrant gardens stretched outward on either side, their meticulous arrangements hinting at the wealth and care poured into their upkeep. Beyond the gardens lay the estate's crown jewel, an infinity pool that shimmered like liquid gold, reflecting the deepening hues of the setting sun. The air was alive with elegance and opulence. Guests dressed in the finest couture strolled across the stone terrace, their laughter and conversation mingling with the smooth melodies of a live jazz quartet. This gathering was no ordinary affair. It was an exclusive event hosted by Elias Chamberlain, a man known for his enigmatic persona and unmatched generosity. The guest list read like a roll call of the elite, business magnates, celebrities, and heirs to storied fortunes. Servers in crisp white uniforms weaved gracefully through the throng, carrying trays of sparkling champagne flutes and artfully crafted hors d'oeuvres. The scent of expensive perfume, fresh blossoms, and a faint hint of chlorine from the pool blended in the evening breeze. The centerpiece of the soirée, the infinity pool, was lined with iridescent tiles that caught the light like a cascade of gems. Luxurious cabanas draped with sheer white curtains framed the pool's edge, while plush lounge chairs adorned with velvet cushions offered a place for the guests to relax, drinks in hand. The pool seemed to merge seamlessly with the skyline, a visual masterpiece that left many in awe. Despite the spectacle, Elias Chamberlain himself was nowhere to be seen. Known for his sharp business acumen and a philanthropic streak that had touched countless lives, he was a man who valued privacy. It was a rarity for him to attend his own events, preferring to let his guests bask in the splendor of his hospitality. This air of mystery only made invitations to his parties all the more coveted. As twilight deepened, the atmosphere grew more vibrant. Laughter rippled through the air as clusters of friends animatedly exchanged stories, their voices occasionally punctuated by the clinking of glasses. A group of younger attendees had gathered near the pool, their boisterous energy cutting through the refined elegance of the evening. At their center was Jason Everly, a brash and self-assured man who thrived on being the focal point of attention. Known for his tendency to push the boundaries of decorum, Jason's antics were often excused by his considerable social standing. Meanwhile, the servers moved with practiced efficiency, their presence blending into the background. Among them was Elena, a young woman who carried herself with quiet determination. Her uniform, a white button-down shirt, black trousers, and a neatly tied apron, was simple, but Elena wore it with pride. To her, it symbolized far more than just a job. At 23, Elena had faced more challenges than many twice her age. Her father's passing during her teenage years had thrust her family into financial instability, leaving her mother to shoulder the responsibility of raising Elena and her younger brother, Noah. When her mother fell seriously ill the previous year, Elena had made the difficult decision to leave college and take on multiple jobs to cover the mounting medical bills and household expenses. Her days were long, her nights even longer, but she refused to let her circumstances extinguish her resolve. Tonight's job was just another step in her journey. Elena had been hired by an elite catering company to serve at one of the city's most prestigious gatherings. The pay was excellent, and every dollar counted. She had arrived hours early, ensuring her appearance was spotless and professional. Her dark hair was tied back neatly, and she adjusted her cuffs one last time before stepping onto the terrace. The sight that greeted her was breathtaking. The pool shimmered under the soft glow of lights, and the guests sparkled in their designer attire. Laughter and clinking glasses created a soundtrack of sophistication. But as Elena moved among them, balancing a tray of champagne flutes with steady hands, she felt the sharp divide between her world and theirs. These were people who lived lives of excess and privilege, worlds apart from her own struggles. Despite the disparity, Elena knew her place. She had a job to do, and she intended to do it well. She moved with poise, smiling politely when acknowledged, and enduring curt dismissals without flinching. Years of working in service had taught her to absorb the occasional slight with grace. though the tension between her and the guests was a silent but palpable undercurrent. As the night progressed, the boisterous group by the pool grew louder, their laughter and playful splashing cutting through the ambiance. Elena adjusted her tray and stepped toward them, preparing to offer more champagne. Little did she know, the evening was about to take a turn that would leave her at the center of an unexpected and life-altering moment. What kept Elena going wasn't the approval of others, nor the need to fit into the glittering world around her. It was her unshakable purpose that gave her strength. She thought of her mother, resting at home after yet another grueling treatment, and of her younger brother Noah, studying late into the night to prepare for his exams. Every step Elena took tonight, every tray she carried, was for them. Her sacrifices were their stability, and that was enough to push her forward, even when she was met with the dismissive laughter and judgmental stares of the wealthy guests. Elena held her head high. She didn't belong to this world of privilege, but that didn't mean she had to lower herself. Her life, though simple and difficult, had dignity. Tonight was just one more step in her long journey, and she was determined to carry herself with grace. Balancing the tray of champagne flutes with practiced precision, Elena moved through the lively crowd. Her posture was steady, her movements fluid. Years of experience at events like this had taught her the fine art of being unseen. She could glide through groups of distracted guests without so much as a jostle, her tray always perfectly balanced. At the far edge of the pool, she approached a group of younger attendees whose energy radiated louder than the rest of the crowd. Their laughter rose in bursts, their movements restless and uninhibited. Among them was Jason Everly, the kind of guest Elena always dreaded. He was every bit the image of a spoiled heir, someone who thrived on being the center of attention without ever considering the effort that made evenings like this possible. Jason lounged carelessly on a velvet-covered chair, his tailored suit impeccable, his smirk a permanent fixture. "Champagne?" Elena asked politely, her tone neutral as she extended the tray toward the group. The others barely noticed her as they reached for their glasses. Jason, however, took a moment to size her up, his sharp gaze raking over her tired eyes and damp uniform from the humid evening air. His smirk grew wider. "Careful there, Cinderella," he quipped, his voice loud enough to draw chuckles from the group. Elena's cheeks flushed, but she refused to let his words rattle her. She nodded slightly, turning to walk away. Before she could take 2 steps, Jason called out again, his voice carrying over the noise. "Hey everyone, want to see something funny?" The words didn't register immediately, but the next thing Elena felt was a shove. Jason had stepped behind her and pushed her forward, his motion deliberate. The tray in her hands tilted violently, and she lost her balance. Time seemed to slow, as the champagne flutes tumbled through the air, their sparkling forms catching the light like shattered stars. Then, with a loud splash, Elena hit the pool. The cold water rushed over her, stealing her breath as she plunged beneath the surface. When she surfaced, gasping for air, the laughter around her was deafening. Jason and his friends were doubled over, their jeers mixing with the sound of the jazz music in the background. Elena wiped her wet hair from her face, her uniform clinging uncomfortably to her body. For a moment she froze, the humiliation weighing on her like an anchor. Jason's mocking voice cut through the din. "Oh, come on! It's just water," he called, eliciting another round of laughter from the onlookers. Shaking, Elena pulled herself out of the pool, her steps slow and deliberate. The cold air bit at her soaked skin, but it was nothing compared to the heat of shame burning in her chest. She bit her lip hard, refusing to let the tears come. Ignoring the snickers that followed her, she knelt down to gather the shards of broken glass from the poolside tiles. Her hands trembled as she worked, the small puddle forming beneath her evidence of the ordeal she'd just endured. The laughter continued, sharp and cutting, as if the whole world had paused to relish in her moment of vulnerability. But Elena refused to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She had learned long ago that tears only gave power to those who wanted to see you falter. One by one, she collected the shards, her movements careful and deliberate. The task became a meditation of sorts, allowing her to block out the stares and whispers around her. "Did you see her face?" one guest murmured nearby, sending another ripple of laughter through the group. Elena's jaw tightened as she fought to keep her expression neutral. Her cheeks burned with humiliation, but she reminded herself of why she was here. Her family needed her. No matter what, she couldn't afford to crumble. A waiter knelt beside Elena, his expression a blend of concern and unease. "Elena, are you okay?" he asked quietly, his voice laced with sympathy. She nodded quickly, avoiding his gaze. "I'm fine," she whispered, though her voice wavered. "Just help me clean this up." Together, they began collecting the shattered glass from the poolside tiles. Elena kept her head down, her mind a storm of conflicting emotions, humiliation, anger, and a resilience that refused to crumble. Images of her mother and brother flashed through her mind, their faces a comforting anchor. This wasn't the first time she had been treated unfairly, and she knew it wouldn't be the last. But if enduring moments like this meant her family could have a better future, she would bear it. Nearby, Jason Everly, the instigator of her embarrassment, leaned against a lounge chair, still grinning smugly. "Relax, Cinderella," he called mockingly. "It's just a little water." Elena bit her lip so hard she nearly drew blood. A part of her wanted to lash out, to hurl the broken glass at his feet, and demand an apology. But instead she took a deep breath, clutched the tray tightly, and stood up. Her uniform clung to her like a second skin, and her soaked shoes squelched with every step as she walked away from the pool. She wouldn't let them break her. In her silence, Elena carried a quiet strength that no laughter or ridicule could diminish. The jeering softened, the sound fading as the hum of jazz and subdued conversations filled the air once more. Then a new sound emerged, footsteps cutting through the din. The atmosphere shifted, rippling through the crowd like an invisible wave. The laughter stopped entirely. Stepping onto the deck was none other than the enigmatic host, Elias Chamberlain. Clad in a perfectly tailored suit, Elias moved with an air of quiet authority. His salt and pepper hair and piercing blue eyes lent him a dignified yet approachable presence. Though known for his philanthropic efforts, Elias rarely attended his own events, preferring to remain behind the scenes. Tonight, however, something had drawn him out. His sharp gaze swept across the scene, taking in the shattered glass, the puddles of water, and Elena's drenched figure standing to the side, clutching her tray. The guests stood frozen, their earlier amusement replaced with a collective unease. Elias's eyes locked onto Jason, who lounged smugly by the pool, oblivious to the change in mood. "Can someone explain what happened here?" Elias's voice was calm, yet carried an unmistakable edge of authority. His question hung heavily in the air, demanding an answer. Jason, caught off guard, scrambled to his feet. It was nothing," he stammered, his usual confidence faltering. "The waitress tripped and, fell into the pool. No big deal." Elena's heart sank. She wanted to speak up, to tell the truth, but hesitated. This was a world where people like Jason held all the power, and people like her were invisible, their voices often ignored. Elias turned his gaze to Elena, his expression softening slightly. "Is that true?" he asked gently, his voice steady but kind. Elena hesitated, then shook her head. "No, sir, I didn't trip," she said quietly, her voice trembling but firm. "He pushed me." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elias's expression darkened. He turned back to Jason, his tone icy. "You pushed her," Jason laughed nervously, raising his hands in a half-hearted defense. "It was just a joke. Everyone thought it was funny." "Did they?" Elias's voice dropped to a chilling calm as he scanned the crowd. No one dared to speak. "Let me be clear," Elias said, addressing everyone now. "This is my home, and I do not tolerate cruelty disguised as humor. If you find amusement in humiliating others, you don't belong here." The crowd shifted uncomfortably, their earlier laughter now a source of collective shame. Jason opened his mouth to protest, but Elias raised a hand, silencing him. "You're leaving, now." At his signal, security appeared seemingly out of nowhere. Jason was escorted away as murmurs rippled through the stunned crowd. All eyes remained fixed on Elias Chamberlain and Elena, the soaked server clutching a tray of shattered glass fragments, like a fragile shield. Elena's heart raced, a mix of lingering embarrassment, confusion, and a flicker of hope swirling within her. Why was he standing up for her so fervently? What was he going to say next? "Miss," Elias began, his voice calm yet laced with a kindness that caught her off guard. You've been honest with me about what happened here tonight, and I appreciate that, but there's something else I'd like to understand. Elena blinked, unsure of what he meant. Yes, sir? She replied softly, her voice steady despite the tension around them. He gestured to her drenched uniform and the tray she still held tightly. You're here tonight, working tirelessly under what are clearly difficult circumstances. What drives you? What makes you endure behavior like his and keep going? The question hit her like a wave. Elena hesitated, her gaze flickering to the crowd of onlookers. Their murmured whispers grew louder as they speculated, some in surprise, others in discomfort. But when she turned her eyes back to Elias, his expression was sincere, his demeanor encouraging. Taking a deep breath, she answered. My family, she said simply. My mother is ill, and my younger brother is still in school. Someone has to take care of them, and I will do whatever it takes to make sure they're okay. That's why I'm here. Her words were straightforward, devoid of self-pity, but they carried a quiet strength that silenced even the harshest of whispers. She hadn't intended to reveal so much of her life, but something about Elias's presence made it feel safe to be honest. The crowd, however, reacted differently. Whispers spread among them like wildfire, some shocked, others looking away, uncomfortable with the harsh light her story cast on their evening of excess. Elias's face softened, his piercing blue eyes thoughtful. You remind me of someone I once knew, he said, almost to himself, before turning to address the crowd. With a commanding tone, he said, What you've witnessed here tonight isn't just cruelty. It's a failure to recognize the dignity of another human being. Elena's story is one of resilience, strength, and sacrifice, something we all could stand to learn from. His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. The guests shifted uncomfortably, their earlier amusement now a source of collective shame. Turning back to Elena, Elias smiled faintly. But I think you've endured enough for one evening, he said gently. I'd like to make you an offer. Elena's breath hitched, her wide eyes searching his face. An offer? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Yes, he said, his tone steady. I oversee several charitable organizations, and I'm always looking for people with your determination and work ethic. If you're interested, I'd like to offer you a position. Something far better suited to your abilities than this. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The unexpected turn of events left the guests stunned, their disbelief palpable. Elena could barely process his words. A position working for one of the most influential philanthropists in the city? It was a dream she'd never dared to entertain. Her hands trembled as she stammered. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it, Elias said warmly, his voice cutting through her disbelief. And no matter what, know this, your hard work has not gone unnoticed tonight. In that moment, the humiliation and hurt Elena had felt earlier melted away, replaced by a profound sense of vindication and hope. She had been knocked down, both literally and figuratively, but now she was being lifted higher than she could have ever imagined. For the first time that evening, Elena felt seen, not as a server or a nameless face in a crowd, but as a person with value, strength, and potential. And for that, she stood a little taller, her quiet resilience shining brighter than ever.